From that time, Sumedha gradually practiced the path of the Buddhas, and before long he rose to the rank that leads to Buddhahood. He was born into the two-siddha heaven and became a bodhisattva. The bodhisattva resided in a land with asoka trees and blooming mandarava and lotus flowers, where parrots, peacocks, and kalavikas sang their songs. Surrounded by music performed by celestial maidens, he ascended to the lion's seat in the great hall of the true Dharma, and for the sake of a host of divine beings, he expounded the teaching. At a gathering one day, the music of the divine beings naturally produced a song.
O Arhat, eons passed under the Buddha Dipankara, you attained the enlightenment of the Buddhas. You have completed the practices and are filled with wisdom. O Arhat, where people have thirsted for water for a long time, quickly descend to the world and pour them water. Where the fires of defilement burn furiously, spread out a cloud of compassion and let the rain of the Dharma fall. Destroying the demons' roses and false teachings, reveal the path of the Bodhisattva and save the people of the world.
The Bodhisattva heard this song, and sensing that he must perform a great mission, he vowed to descend to the world of men. The host of divine beings raised their voices in rejoicing and shouted,
Now the Buddha is going to appear in the human world.
The Bodhisattva surveyed a multitude of human worlds, and wishing to be born into a household belonging to a noble clan, he chose the family Gautama of the clan Sakaya. The king of the Sakaya clan, King Suddhodana, constantly performed virtuous acts and governed his people magnanimously. His consort, Queen Maya, was beautiful in appearance, and her heart was pure. She was skilled in various arts and possessed all the merits needed to become the mother of a Buddha. Then the Bodhisattva, for the sake of the host of divine beings, expounded the teachings.
All of you, first give rise to faith, venerate the teaching, hold the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha in your mind, and attain the path of the sages. Knowing that the world is impermanent and filled with suffering, abide in an egoless mind, with peace in your mind. Do not give rise to thoughts of greed. Ceaselessly absorbed in meditation, attain wisdom and, using skillful means, guide those people who are shrouded by the darkness of ignorance. Even the marvelous adornments of the celestial world sink down into the lands of suffering when the good fortune that produced these adornments exhausts itself. Even greed is pathetically fleeting. All is as empty as a dream. Greed is never satiated. It is like being parched and drinking salt water. Therefore, urging yourself onward, attain the bliss of the uncreated. Should you attain transcendent wisdom, you will then realize fulfillment. Study the principles of things. Do not become attached to words. Act in accordance with your words, and speak in accordance with your actions. Always be aware of your own evil, and do not look at the faults of others. Without your own actions, you will not receive the fruits of the actions performed by others.
The Bodhisattva instructed the host of divine beings with these words. Just when he was about to descend from the celestial world, innumerable divine beings of that world gathered together at the palace in the two-siddha heaven, and made offerings to the Bodhisattva by playing music. At that time, from the body of the Bodhisattva, light streamed forth, shone on the great 3,000 worlds, and dispelled the darkness. The heavens and the earth trembled, and the light of the sun and the moon lost their power. The people were filled with joy, and they became as loving toward each other as parents and their children. The celestial beings residing in the sky sang out.
For a truly incalculably long span of time, he lacerated his flesh and pulverized his bones. As a reward for this complete practice, the Bodhisattva attains a body that is immovable. Receiving the helmet of compassion, he dispels the harm done by defilement. Having pity for all people, the Bodhisattva now appears in the world. Shining forth the light of wisdom, he awakens all those who slumber, and as king of the great 1,000 worlds, he appears in the world like the sun.
The Bodhisattva at this time assumed the form of a huge white elephant with 6 tusks and descended from the two-siddha heaven. He then passed under Queen Maya's right arm and entered her womb as she slept peacefully. The palace was filled with joy and peace. Auspicious clouds trailed in the sky and enveloped the tiled roofs of the lofty towers. One day in the last month of her pregnancy, the queen decided that she would like to pass the spring day in a flower garden. Receiving permission from the king and attended by a retinue of ladies-in-waiting, she had herself driven to the Lumbini Grove. The trees were abloom with beautiful flowers that gave off pleasant fragrances. The deep green grasses were like the tail feathers of a peacock and swayed like soft fine silk blown by the wind. The queen took a pleasant stroll. She leaned on the limb of an asoka tree which drooped down because of the weight of its flowers. At that moment, the Bodhisattva was born, suddenly and yet peacefully. Immediately after birth, he took 7 steps in each of the 4 directions and proclaimed,
"In heaven above and on earth below, I am the most honored one. I shall dispel the suffering that fills the world."
The divine beings residing in space praised the virtues of the mother, Queen Maya. The Naga king rained down cold and warm water and bathed the body of the Bodhisattva. The great earth trembled and shook with joy. Shortly thereafter, the infant was received by the queen, and since everything proceeded without difficulty, the prince was named Siddhartha, whose goal is achieved. 7 days after his birth, his mother Queen Maya departed this world and was born in the Tavatimsa heaven, and her younger sister Mata Prajapati assumed the role of compassionate foster mother to the prince. At that time the sage Asita, who had been living in the mountains near the city of Kapilavatthu, was startled by the auspicious signs that accompanied the prince's birth. He visited the royal palace, taking along with him his nephew, a child named Narada. Asita cradled the prince reverently and gazed down at him for a long time, but soon, choking with tears of sadness, he said,
"O king, if this child remains at home, he will become a universal monarch and bring peace to the 4 worlds. But he will without doubt leave home in search of the path and become a Buddha. I am an old man and shall not be able to hear the teaching of this Buddha." Realizing this, I shed tears of sorrow.
King Suddhodana heard these words and rejoiced, making offerings to the sage and Narada in a variety of ways.